Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I am delighted to be joined by Frank McAvennie and Simon Houston. Frank McAvennie, welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It's been a few years. You visited in Stirling, remember? Stirling.
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I remember now, yeah.
I think it was Simon that set it up.
Was it? Oh, is that
Simon, you had to set that up, and you came through, and I'm pretty sure
it was good in the studio.
you had your dog there as well, dead time, yeah. Aye,
Yes, that's right, aye. I think so.
yeah. So the reason I bring that up, Frank, is since we started this 8 years ago, you've been very kind to us.
Yeah.
You've been on the show before. You helped me out with the Nearly Mocking documentary.
Yeah.
We've done a few nights together as well, and we were chatting at the St Rocks game.
Yes.
That's almost 2 years, a year and a half ago. And you're saying, I'm setting up my own thing with my pal. And here it is. So, Simon, over to you.
Yeah.
It's going really, really well, isn't it?
It's picking up momentum in the last few weeks. Very, very noticeable. And we did this from kind of bare feet to start off with, no sponsor or anything. It was literally, and the history of it was, Frank phoned me. I did my own podcast previously, which was nothing to do with Celtic or anything. It was a comedy one, but
Yeah, nothing to do with comedy.
very good guy. And Frank phoned me and he said, "Fancy doing a podcast?" And I'm like, "Why not?" And we just kind of, so we just started doing it. That was it. At that point, we knew a guy who had produced the one I did previously. He set us up with a studio in the south side, quite close to the BBC, up next studios, if you know it. And the guys in there are brilliant. And we just, before we knew it, and what I discovered very quickly is Frank has a contacts book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, look, Rod Stewart, and before we started going down the route of footballers, Rod Stewart was on it, actors, Ray Winston, Mark Compston. It struck me that there was nobody that he couldn't get on. We didn't try to get Messi on yet.
No.
No. But
Beckham says he's going to come on first.
But the whole idea is,
You were Beckham before Beckham, Frank.
I know.
but the whole idea was, so Frank, obviously you did stuff with Open Goal podcast and that kind of thing, and then that stopped for reasons which I don't know. But for me, having the opportunity to sit there next to a guy who was a hero of mine and is now a friend, and sit there in a studio and just recollect and talk about his career with superstars.
We've had a few people on. That's never done podcasts. Scott Brown never done one before, and John Brown, and Bomber never.
That's
done
two ends of the scale, but that's the depth of your phone book.
No, that's just
Frank.
Well, do you know what? I don't think Neil Lennon would mind me saying this, but after we stopped filming it, I said to him, I can't think enough. No, we weren't paying them, So they were obviously doing it in their own time, and I said, I can't thank enough for doing that. And he said, I'd crawl over broken glass for that guy. So that gave me, I knew it anyway, but just it reaffirmed in my mind who we're talking about here.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you something else. My wee boy skived school today to come and meet Frank, and when the moment came, he just waved as my missus drove away, because he used Frank as an excuse to get off of school. So we up to the Celtic shops anyway. I think you maybe met him before, Frank, because you came up to my first book launch up at Celtic Park.
I did, yes.
Aye, so you've always supported us, and it's great to see the show going really well. Yeah. And it's where it's going now, media and content, isn't it?
Yeah.
Remember back in the day, you could watch a TV show and it was a long form. This will get us onto the Wogan question. It was a long form interview.
Yeah.
People loved it.
Yeah.
But it kind of died down, and now you can get that kind of content on YouTube.
Yeah, completely. It's like, we're chat show hosts. That's how we see it, and you do it as well. And by the way, before I forget to say it, this is like, I am incredibly proud to come on this, because big fan of Acsom. Got me through lockdown, through that miserable season as well. I was just long hours walking the dog, listening to you and the guys.
It was a therapy session.
It was a therapy session. I needed that, and then there was that period where we didn't have a manager and all sorts of stuff was going on, and you were going because everywhere you looked on social media, it was misery, and listening to the likes of Acsom was an opportunity to lock into other Celtic supporters.
You know what happened? That gave us a wee tribe, like a core, who still watch us to this day. But I keep saying to people, it gave me a structure of my day. So I would get up, I'd need to do my research for the show, go online, upload it, etc. So the only downside of that is we were very critical of Celtic at the time, and I don't like being critical of Celtic.
So sometimes you got to say the truth. I know it's people don't want to hear it, but sometimes
I think that's important.
I'd find it very doing commentary, and I couldn't I couldn't tell lies. I couldn't say, oh, great pass. I mean, some teams I listen to a game. I was listening to a Celtic game and I was driving. I couldn't go to the game, but I was driving. And I'm thinking, wow, what a game this is. And when I watched it, I had the highlight, I had the tape. It was the worst game I have ever seen in my life. And I'm thinking, these boys, where are they getting paid? You know, just be honest.
You've got to be. You've got to be kind of balanced, you know.
Aye, but also, but you know what you're saying about being critical of Celtic, that's what fans needed at that point. They needed to hear it. There's no point, you know, whitewashing and saying things are okay. You need to have it presented to you in a way that this is how bad it is at the moment. You know,
Goes back to the old Celtic View days where they were called Pravda.
Absolutely. No, I was thinking about it recently about all that. Yeah, completely. And who was the editor at the time? Was it
Jerry Dunbar who did the Not the View, and Matt McGhee did the alternative.
That's right.
Once a Tim.
Yeah, that's right.
Frank, I brought a couple of books along.
See that?
I always like to read the autobiographies. I know it's been out for a few years, but thoroughly enjoyed it second time round again. The one on the left should spark some visual memories. This was the season, believe it or not, that I started going to the games, Simon. 1987, my first game was Tommy Bonzi's testimonial against Liverpool. They beat us 1-0. The week before, or the week after, Charlie Nicholas played for Arsenal. They beat us 5-1. You remember this?
I do remember. I remember Martin Hayes as well playing.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there, was I?
Exactly. Aye, so 2 defeats, but Frank wasn't playing. When you see this, I'm guessing that's one of your jerseys in there because it's
Well,
long
one
sleeve.
of my jerseys were missing, so I know what it is now. So I could say that's ticket because I was the only one really wore the long sleeves.
Definitely.
You know, I mean, that's why people compared me to Dennis Law. That was the only reason they compared me. Not to do with ability. The two is like long sleeve jerseys, and we held on to them. And that's the only comparison I've ever got with Dennis. God rest him.
Aye, you were on Wogan with it.
I know, I'm going Wogan. That was the reason, because he was finishing, I was just starting my so-called Scotland career. Which
Can I just jump
It
for
looks better long sleeve though, don't it?
I think it was.
You don't see them that often, do you?
No, you saw the Under Armour stuff.
And I always think of the night in Seville where it must have been 90 degrees or whatever the temperature was, and at least half the Celtic team are wearing long sleeves. You know, I couldn't quite get my head around that. Nowadays, they'll maybe use a kind of a base layer or something that would still, but
That's the thing with Lisbon, Simon. We always wore long sleeve. You think of Jinky with the Cubs, but at Lisbon we always wore short sleeves. So that may well be the jersey you're talking about, Frank.
Of course, yeah.
Because it was impossible to get a jersey from Neely Mokin by all the.
Oh my God, you couldn't get nothing off Neely. My God,
you couldn't even take his record by, I reckon.
Bits. That's what he gets you called, boots. Bits. He's unbelievable. I couldn't take his record. The yellow one, that jersey, the yellow one, it was the first time I ever came across Neely's record. And I scored 4 at Morton. And the gaffer took me off, and I'm going, he took me off, there's 15 minutes to go. And he went, he's just pointing, and Neely's sitting there, and I said, what's the matter? He says, you'll never be my record, son. You'll never match my record, son.
You get 5, didn't you?
You get 5, yeah. So I said to the gaffer, I says, any chance of me going for an early flight then? It did too well, as you can imagine.
You know, you're talking there about the gaffer and your early flight.
Yeah.
You had a really good relationship with Billy McNeil. I mean, he fined you, but often he'd give you a bag if you played well for him.
But scored against Aberdeen or whatever, give me it back. It was good. It was brilliant. It was like my dad, you know. And I didn't realise the camaraderie at the club and all that. People were taking bets to see what minute I was coming in at. You know, they were picking, they did the Grand National this weekend up, and did the Grand National, so we don't just record anything. And we got it, and they pick our horse out. They were picking what minute I was coming back.
Because you would have that British Midland flight out on a Monday.
I missed the British Airways. I never went for it.
Because the Captain George would sometimes, the helicopter take you to Barrowfield.
To Barrowfield once, but I can't tell that because I did that after dinner.
That is phenomenal. But see, when you're talking about camaraderie, I'm going to ask you this, Simon, because you've seen big changes in Scottish football. And that dressing room with regards to, you know, being prepared to run through a brick wall. I watch all the shows, Simon, all the ex-players, and they talk about the dressing room. I was watching one recently with Real Fox, and he says if you compared the Newcastle dressing room to the Spurs dressing room, you know, it just wasn't the same. How big a thing was that back in the day? Because it was all homegrown players, wasn't it?
It was all, well, when the gaffer bought me, he said to me, because Rangers were buying all the big internationals now, and he said to me, buying all the Celtic supporters. And I'll tell you why it worked, because, you know, most of the boys were Celtic boys, and if they weren't, certainly were, but then we come up, Big Mick McCarthy bought it and all that, and it was great. I just loved everything about it. There's always something happened in the morning, and it was usually me that was getting it, you know, and then for done something, people stick things above my bit. It was all good. I mean, Wee Joe, I know you get Wee Joe on our team. Wee Joe was the best when he signed. You know, right away, it took me 10 minutes to sell into the boys because I knew them all. Wee Joe was signing and he was coming in for his first day's training, and I'm away and got my wee strip and 8-year-old strip across the shop and I hung up in his peg where he was. Me granny went away upstairs. He started laughing. He went away upstairs and came down with a high chair.
But you told me as well, like, but that was a changing room, you know, from it, obviously from an outsider looking in. That was a changing room just full of leaders as well.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy,
Aye.
Roy Aitken,
Oh my God.
Tommy Burns, you know, Paul McStay, and
Paul Led beat Sampo. It wasn't a shouting and, you know, it wasn't all that. But we'd probably 11 captains on the team. You know,
and the passion as well. I mean, you've spoken too about like Mike McCarthy and Tommy Burns after a game.
Oh my God! And
Going on
I didn't realise it was every game. And I'm panicking amongst them, and the boys were like, "Oh, boys." Two of them are so hot-headed, you know, and they would shout at each other in the game, and when they stopped, but the gaffer used to let it go.
Because they're winners.
Yeah,
just the standards.
Hated.
And do you know what? It occurred to me as well in these last 2 or 3 games against Rangers, which haven't gone as we hoped tonight, and even the cup final. Without Cal McGregor in the pitch at the last one, where was the leadership?
No, there's no.
You know, where was the Bertie is going to? I just thought that was missing a wee bit.
That's my biggest thing at the moment. My biggest gripe. I've talked to Lenny, and I'm saying that we've not got you or Scott Brown. And sometimes we love to go forward, which is great when you're playing less. But we see when you get caught out and they hit you on the break, we've not got anyone to stop a game.
Yeah.
Take a foul. You know, just
Lenny was brilliant at that.
he was brilliant at it. Scott was great. I think the boy Moy was done all right when he came in, but we need somebody because he just run in on the back four, and there's nobody because even Callum's out of the park. You know, and you're running back. And let's be honest, when there's nobody in there that will put a tackle in.
Yeah,
But there's boys out there, they're all good players.
Yeah.
Great players going forward, but there's two. There's two. I like Tally, you know, attacking that. They'll kick you and then bow and thank you and pick them up, and I love that. I guess you put somebody in. No, yeah, sorry.
I know.
And the referee let me away with it. I know.
I think, you know, people going about, we need a Wanyama. I didn't expect to return to Scottish football. That was sensational, the other feet there. But I think Bernardo's maybe got a wee bit of
Yes.
But
the problem with Bernardo is he's got to learn how to sit there because he loves going.
He fancies himself as a forward playing, doesn't it?
Everybody thinks what's a best centre forward. Everybody. So you've got to control and I don't think it would take much to get him to sit there because he's got that in him.
Aye, definitely does.
Yeah, we missed him last year.
I've got a couple of quotes here, Frank. I always find it interesting to see if you can figure out who said this about you, right? So the first one was, pardon my French, I know this is a family show, right? You might be a skillful wee fucker, but I'm the hardest bastard on this park.
McCarthy.
Mick McCarthy. That was when you're down south, wasn't it?
To be fair, I did break his nose at the time. It was my pal Mark Ward at West Ham had told me he was going to break my legs, and I didn't know who Mick was. And I said, who's Mick McCarthy, centre half, just be careful. So I went out and, you know, typical Glasgow boy, hit first. And I've smashed him, and that was it. You might be a better player than me. He said, but I'm the hardest player you'll play against, and I'm going to be honest with you, he kicked the crap out of me. And every time the ball was out of play, he tried to punch me and all that, so I never stopped running.
Remember he did that with Crawford Baptiste?
Brilliant. He done me jaw, didn't he? He was kicking me jaw, Baptiste, I think. And he just...
I love that.
Yeah,
Frank. I love that.
Oh, he looked after me, Joe.
Roy Keane talks about that, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
look after your teammates.
Absolutely.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Of course he did.
I always remember, you know, I don't know how much truth there is in that or not, but, you know, Big Roy was always kind of thought of it as a minder sometimes for Paul McStay possibly, you know, just to hover around. I mean, we were discussing about Roy being a midfielder as well. I thought thinking of him as a centre half.
I thought he'd be great in there with Paul. If Granny was injured, which, you know, him and Granny split it. You know, sometimes you put Paul in there and it was wonderful.
So Big Mick was with Man City at the time, wasn't
Man City, yeah.
Revisiting your boot, a very interesting wee bit about that was when you're at Celtic, and we'll probably talk about Lou Mackay because he was your manager twice at West Ham and Celtic.
I wouldn't call him a manager.
Man City wanted to sign you.
Yes, and he pulled the plug on it. Mackay pulled the plug on it. You're not supposed to do it, but Brian Horner was the manager,
right?
And he was on the phone with my agent, and he wanted me. And he was offering me great money, more than double what I was on at Celtic, just to go on loan to the end of the season. It gave me away from McGhee. I thought, brilliant.
Yeah, yep.
Get me back up there. And he said to me, "You pack your stuff, you're leaving tonight, Thursday." And I went, brilliant. So the case was already packed anyway. So waiting, never phoned me. And I went in the Friday, and Brian Norton phoned that night, says McGhee's pulled the plug in it. So I went in the Friday morning, and Monica, remember Monica, you saw in reception? I don't know if you do, she was there for years. A lot of girls used to be there for years. They've all been at my weddings and all that. So they know me better than anyone. I get married. So they know it. And I went in and I says, "Where is the little..." I don't know, I can't tell you. And I said, "What's his number?" She wouldn't believe me, but she got up to go to the toilet and left the number there. And I phoned him and I was calling him everything. He's going, "Morning, Mac." I said, "Fuck, you're morning me." I says, "What happened?" And he says, "They pulled the plug." And I couldn't say, it was you that pulled the plug.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to do that,
Because I would let on that you were speaking to.
So that's why I had to go. And then I went down to Swindon because I had to get away. McGhee wasn't playing me, and I can't just sit there, I can't, no matter what. But I knew even when I played, when he put me on, I gave everything for him.
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter what McGhee, it's not about McGhee, it's about the fans, but me and my person, just everything, what I think about football, you give everything, and then you have an argument with him after it.
Yeah.
But I had to go to Swindon. It was John Gorman, Davy Hay.
So Luna Carey, John Gorman, Davy Hay were all in the same team.
Aye,
Quality
I
Street
know.
kids.
So and Davy was saying, but McGhee, I thought we were going to get, I thought we were going to get football. It was one of my idols. The way he played football, I thought, this is going to be brilliant, lads. I'm telling everyone, it couldn't have been any different from John Lyle. John Lyle was there, he was there.
So see, was it all about trying to
Kick it, but this is when it's training session.
run in and all this?
Training session,
Constantly.
training session there, you're at the byline. Kick it as high as you can, you've got one bounce and catch it before halfway line. And cones, every time I get down the motorway and there's a lot of cones in the motorway, I get a come out and flushes because that's his training.
That reminds you
Oh,
of McGhee.
tell you what, the price of the cones went up when McGhee took over his house. Honestly, God.
Was that for shuttle runs?
Every long runs, you're like, oh my God. And if you don't win, it's because you're not fit enough.
Well, see the thing with that.
horrible.
See if you particularly the centenary season, if you watch Frank McAvennie playing for Celtic, the work rate. I know that the data was now around back then, the assists, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How much kilometres you covered in the game, Frank, was unbelievable. So what you're showing there is you can go and have a good night,
Aye.
but you can be trusted because you still perform
Well, that's a good thing.
in the game.
What I was thinking about when I think about Frank, and I'm going to quote my brother John, we used to go to all the games home and away, for years, and he said that Frank led the line better than any striker he can remember, and to use that particular phrase, leading the line, and that's what you did.
There's no many players now. I don't think there's no many players can lead on their own. I mean, I know for a fact, I guarantee it, the big boy, Adam Adair is going to be a good player. But see, the moment, somebody's got to get a hold of him. Somebody's got to tell him, you've got to hold it. Yeah. There's other things in scoring.
I feel for him a wee bit because he's
No,
got
but
a decent price tag around his neck now.
I'm not talking about that. Forget about that. I'm talking about somebody's got to teach him.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to teach, because I get taught. When I was at St Mirren, Jimmy Bone taught me. Jimmy Bone broke my back and he taught me things, how to jump, because I wasn't the biggest in the world, how to jump, always put your body in front, you'll get a free kick, take your pressure off the defence, things like that when you're playing up front. He knew I was going to be playing up front, even though I was in midfield at the time.
Could do with you. They could do with you.
But somebody just to say,
I know.
see when the ball comes out, I was shouting, and I think he's going to be a top player. But he's got to get taught. He's going to, see when the ball comes up to him against Bayern Munich, he kept losing it.
Yeah.
And it was going straight back at the defence, and I'm saying, Tommy Burns, Mick McCarthy, Roy Aitken, I can go through the whole team. They would have had me be the throw it at half time if they didn't do it on the pitch. If I lost the ball twice, I was getting it, because that was just our team. That was just the team. And
It's an education sitting in his company, isn't it?
See the knowledge of ex-players though, I don't think we're tapping into them enough. When I'm talking about maybe John Hartson or somebody like that, and he's not involved in the game.
Yeah.
He's talking about the game, but he's not involved in it. That jersey again, you've mentioned him already, but the first game I went to see at Celtic Park was Tommy Burns' testimony, 1987, right? So obviously you've come up against him when you were at St Mirren a number of times for. Interestingly enough, there is a campaign right now for the canonisation of Tommy Burns, which is astonishing when you think.
It really is.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's an incredible campaign. And he would be the first globally, is that right?
Yeah, first footballer, yeah.
Yeah.
And
If anyone deserves it, Tommy's your man, honestly. But he used to wait. It was a great fun, Tommy, as well. You know, for all that knowledge and all that. He winded me up the first time I'm playing against him. I said, man, 'cause I used to play in midfield. And I'm playing against Tommy Burns, and he's going, Macca, bro, you're doing great, son. He says, you know, Celtic are like me. What? He says, Celtic are watching you today, son. I said, oh, really? He says, so I'm not going to go, just you go. And a wee boy run away up the pack, he'd get it, fling it out, Tommy. He get down, cross out, goal. I'm marked.
He's unmarked.
I'm unmarked.
He's sold you.
And he took big time. And all of a sudden he's going, no, look, they're watching you. Look, honestly, they're watching you. And I'm biting all the time. And I get took off. And I'm going, what are you taking me off for? Your hope was saying, but Celtic are watching.
he's done you.
So I done me up like a cover. Brilliant. But it was some boy.
It's unfortunate that your career ended when McCarry was there because, of course, Tommy Burns comes in. And you'd have been working with him again, Frank.
Yeah. It'd have been
I think he needed a wee bit of that, you know, in that first season.
Well, that's what Liam brought us back for, with Tommy Craig it was, because the strikers that were there didn't like getting involved with centre-halves or goalkeepers. And I didn't mind that, you know, I didn't mind it.
Aye, so that first season you're talking about with them in the Hampden season?
Yes.
Because we were discussing this with Jackie Mack and O'Hara, actually. I think you left just before the Hampden season. I think Jackie Mack came in just after it because you didn't, Claybridge.
No.
But yeah, the Hampden season was horrible when you think back. It was a real it was a tough learning curve for Tommy Burns as a manager.
It definitely was because you didn't have that added 12th man of it. Yeah. We were talking about it before we came in. The fans during COVID not being there damaged Celtic more than it damaged Rangers.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the same. It wasn't the same atmosphere. That was my first season ticket, the Hampden season. And obviously we eventually signed Pierre, but we were desperate for somebody who could, and the experience as well. And I think that's why he brought back Pat Bonham. He brought back Charlie Nicholas. They didn't play as many games. But Tommy Burns, as a man, I've heard stories about him, you know, sitting on the team bus, talking to younger players. As a player himself, just embedding them into the world.
I was going through, we were talking about him through a bad time when Tommy was always on the phone with me. Always phone me. How are you? So I'm all right, getting there.
Just looking after you and
Just thought to see if I was and all that. You know, he knew I was having a bad time and all that, and he was great. He was, you know, I miss him. He used to laugh at me, he used to say, Frank, there's two paths in life. And I said, Tommy, why don't you come out of mine and have a good night out? He's like, no. No, just once. He's like, no, can't do that.
I always remember the cup final. Obviously, it's like there's a haze about that, Simon, because it's an iconic game.
Yeah.
The 2 goals from Frank, but afterwards it was the Tommy Burns interview, wasn't it? It's become an iconic, almost a speech.
So what age would they have been at that point as well? In his mid to late 20s? No, but 88? Oh no, he had his testimonials. They were in his 30s. In his 30s, aye, that's right.
I remember my...
But he just held himself like a man of you know, such maturity, such intelligence, and that emotional link with the support was just tremendous. And I remember
When Maggie Thatcher tried to give him the base of the cup.
Aye.
And he wouldn't take it. He's going, that's too heavy, don't and they're trying to give him and he's going, no.
Do you know the story of Maggie? I can't remember. It was whoever the Scottish Secretary of State was at the time. It was either Forsyth or Rifkind was sitting next to him, and of course the whole place. In fact, the whole Hampden United fans as well were singing Maggie, Maggie, get to. And she turned around and said, what are they singing?
Wishing you luck.
Maggie, Maggie, best of luck.
We had to meet her. We couldn't meet her on the pitch because of the news she was getting.
Yeah.
We had to meet her and Peter, I'm going to be honest with you, Peter was saying, some boys didn't turn up and see her. Not a lot of crap. Everyone was there. Everyone. It was, you know,
Just under the stand.
Billy wouldn't have allowed that, you know, because it's just, you had to do it. So we're doing it. But Big Roy's more doing. I'm going, what?
You're going to tell an income tax story, aren't you?
No, just that's all it was. That's all it was. Just because when I came up and he's gone, don't see no Fred, please. You give me a draw. I'm like, no, I would. And I just got to her. I just thanked her. She went, so thanks for what? I says, I'll bring the tax down 20% because I was on 60 in London. I would come up and she took a tax down to 40. I was like, brilliant. 20% is a lot of money in the days.
So Maggie's only fan was in the stadium that day, right?
Me, yes, and then she thanked me for scoring the 2 goals and I got the medal off her. So I was like, and I have blondes. I've got away with blondes. I've got away with blondes. That's a blonde.
Did we show Maggie the red card, of course, because the poke tax was only fairly... In fact, that'd have been very, very much on at that point. It was 86 to 88, I think, really, was that when the whole poke tax thing was happening. But I just remember the heat was unbearable almost.
But for yourself, there's a moment where you score the equaliser.
Yes.
And is it Paul McGhee comes up to you?
Yeah, and he's actually saying...
He's talking to each other.
You actually see what I said. Everyone knows what I said.
Let's get the winner.
Let's get a winner.
Unbelievable mentality.
I know.
Right,
They
there's a
talked
reason
about
for
we
it.
never stop.
No, was it?
Is that not true, that reason, though?
That's true, yeah, but it wasn't that. It was just...
So the holiday.
But it was... See if we never won it, if we went to replay, if we went to extra time and then replay, Scotland were playing the following week.
Right.
And it was after that, so 2 weeks, just 2 weeks off for holidays, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we were all going on holiday on a Tuesday.
Who were the boys? They all dressed as clowns.
No, we all went, oh, Brian, that was somebody's, who was it, Ways, stag do or something, we all went clowns, and I'm dressed a bookie with glasses and all that, with hats, and I'm all through the airport, and everyone's going, all right, Masha. I'm like,
You're in disguise.
I'm in disguise. It was that. But it was brilliant. But we went to Spain, Big Whitehead, Derek, be Stephen Murray.
Yeah.
Stephen Murray,
Yeah.
McKnight, John Viola, John Viola came with us.
Right.
Billy McKinley, who got man of the match for Dundee United.
Always thought you'd end up at Celtic.
What a player. But we go every night we went for a meal. Round of applause, Billy, man of the match. Every single 5 weeks we had in Spain.
Oh, that's true, man. Stevie Murray's that the boy who got the bad man injury?
Game. What a player.
How good was it?
What a player.
Yeah.
I would have thought he would have been as good, maybe better than McStay.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, I certainly heard the same. I didn't really get to see him much, but you know, the feeling was he's
Certainly would have been there, yeah. I would have thought, I think he may have moved up for as a number 10, you know, I think that'd have been him.
And he'd play under Coffee as well.
2 feet, aye. Great sense of humour as well, you know. Coffee phone doing that so we get a cup of tea and didn't know who he was and he told him where to go. And who is it? He says, is that you, Mr. Clark? Yes. Who's this? No tell.
That's right.
see that moment after the game and Tommy and he's remembering certain people he was going to be visiting.
That's right. The wee boy in the hospital.
was incredible, wasn't it?
I remember watching that as a kid. It
shows you.
this guy's different.
Aye.
He's not just your typical footballer. I mean, you didn't hear that kind of thing
No.
with footballers' interviews. And then there was a bit, I think he finally did get the base of it because was he not sitting on it or something?
Sitting on the stadium.
In
I was saying to him, I'm saying, why are you crying? And he's saying, you've no idea, like, in 100 years they'll remember us. I'm like, oh my God, just the 6th thing. Even now the hairs in the back of your neck stands up because it's, you know, you don't realise I think there was only 4 teams won. Didn't know this, there was only 4 teams, maybe 5 that's won the league in the centenary year.
In the centenary season, yeah.
I've never known that.
And he's talking about 100 years.
I know, it's
Seems
talking
like because it's never got.
Well, everyone's
in
40 years and it's 40 years and everyone's still talking about it. And it's incredible.
Do you think the guys will get back together for a 40th?
Yes.
You need to, yeah.
You had your 35th. Remember you took me along. I ended up sitting at the table.
Definitely.
Somebody thought I was one of the team.
Definitely.
They were signing some.
Remember, was that the one we done in the Hilton? Big wee Joe tried to organise something and Billy, before Billy died, is that
That's
one?
right, aye.
And he came in and we were having a laugh. My missus was saying, couldn't stop laughing because Mum was going, everyone's talking away and all that, and then Billy came in the wheelchair. And I'm talking, I never seen him coming in, half talking, and he started laughing. I was like, listen, Shane, you'll never forget your voice.
No.
That's what it was. And he was great with me. It was great. We miss him. But I think I know somebody's trying to organise some theatre shows.
That would be good.
Because we're doing it at West Ham, because at 86, the boys at 86, the guys are doing 12 down there, so 2 years later.
Let's talk about it because, I mean, we know you as Frank McAVENNIE Celtic icon, but you go down to London and it's the same down there for West Ham. Do you reckon, and no disrespect to Andy Walker, I thought Walker was incredible in that centenary season. Tony Cotty was your perfect partner up front.
Yeah.
And you're still good pals to this day, aren't you?
Definitely. Tony was just a lazy, bit like Andy, lazy little. Well, Andy moved a bit more.
You've done all the run.
Tony just didn't want to move. That's, you know, this people don't know about that team. We knew we had a good team, and I was a trigger. See all this high press? I was a trigger. We just didn't call it anything. You know, this high press in between the lines and all. I'm not.
Well, you were still doing it, eh?
But we done it. I was at John Lyle. We worked all week. I was a trigger. When I went, everyone had to go. Don't get anyone up. The fullbacks up an easy pass. So that was it. But Tony never shot a keeper, and the keeper could pick it up in the days. he just wanted to stay there and score goals. And so we had a meeting 7 games into the season, just all the players, and we told him a few home truths. Nah, let him have it. And he took it. He took it on board, and he became a really good player after that. Because it's not just about being a striker. It's not just about. I think I may have got it because I played in midfield.
Yeah.
You know, because we're playing a game, and Roy would just say to me, "Come back in midfield. We're getting overrun." So I'd come back in midfield for 15 minutes till we got back in top, and then I'd just go back up front because Andy could do that, you know, and I could get there with my pace anytime I needed to.
You weren't managing the game yourselves.
Oh, I done it myself. So nothing to do with that. See,
the action.
See, I can't be. Can you imagine me, a manager, saying to me, "This is where you're going to run in the game"? I'd say, "What? What happens if it goes that way? What happens if the ball goes the other way?
There's a
Don't want me to run there."
Alex Ferguson speaks about creating chaos.
Oh my God!
How can you do that when everything's so specific? Oh, you're right. But it takes us on to a couple of things. After that phenomenal season,
We've done well. We should have won the league. We should have won it.
you imagine West Ham winning it.
Aye, it was incredible. We should have won it. We beat West Brom on the Saturday, which we had to. This is how close it was. If Liverpool had drawn with Chelsea, that point meant Everton couldn't win a league. On the Monday, we had to play them on a Monday. If they get beat, Everton could win. If they could beat Everton, could win the league on the Monday. If they drew, Everton couldn't win it. Doesn't matter, as long as Liverpool didn't win, we could have won it on the Monday. We get told it was a draw, so you can imagine the dressing room. We'd have battered Everton on Monday.
So it came through, I think, from the fans on the trannies.
No, it came from John Lyle. It came through as a draw. Yeah, we were walking off the pitch. I scored, we beat West Brom in the Midlands 2-1. And John Lyle had to come in and tell us, I was like,
Kenny. It was Kenny.
Kenny, I know.
Remember the goal?
I was
Still see
was
it.
devastated, but because my idol, I was like, you know,
I know, bittersweet.
I know, bittersweet. But I didn't want to play on a Monday. Nobody in that dressing room wanted to play on a Monday. I wish now we'd finished second for West Ham, because we were a better team than Everton. By far, we were a better team than them. You know?
And you'd have scored more goals than Lineker. You'd have won the Golden Boot. You know, it's just these moments.
I know. And also, as you also made the point that Lineker took penalties and you didn't.
Oh, never. Well, listen, there was one of them. I'm not going to take it away. He's a good player, but we would have beat him on the Monday, that's for sure. He scored 2, so it was.
It shows you how important
Never been
momentum
booked.
is, eh?
Never been booked at Lineker.
Oh. How can you go through
That's never
a career without a booking?
terrible. I know, and he's never shut up, so you want to tell him it.
I think you got a sender off in your trial game for sitting in, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Mine went my third one. Sent off. Renfrewshire Cup final. Remember?
Was that Simon Morton?
Simon Morton.
Aye, it was unusual for the Renfrewshire Cup.
Well, they played all these local teams, all the wee teams and all that. Junior teams.
They should final. Who's got
They should get to the final, shouldn't it? It's like, so it was one of them, and he played me, and like I said, one of the first team players in Morton tried to go to the pulley, and it wasn't happening. So I went over the top higher than him at one tackle, and it kicked off, and I get sent off, and I thought I'd blown it, but Jim Clooney said to me he knew I had the ability, but he didn't know I had the heart, so gave him a console. God works in mysterious ways, you know.
Character.
It worked too, and it worked out well, but unfortunately, Jim gets sacked. Never even seen me train.
You know,
So and Ricky came in, Ricky McFarlane, and I couldn't even fake injuries on the Monday because he was a physio. So I was gutted. You know.
so he went from being a physio to being a manager.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Was he also the under-21s manager?
Took me in the under-21s. He was the first one. He took me in the under-21s, and we went to Italy in the quarter-final of the European Championships.
Yeah.
And it was a draw. It was a draw. Hamden, I was there, but he took me in for the win, and we took us to Catanzaro, way down the Basque Country. They took us down there to intimidate us, and we had some team. We had unbelievable, but we were all scheme boys. We were all roughly bumping and posting and all that, and they were trying to intimidate us, and it just didn't work. We had John McDonald, Jim Bett, we had Richard Cough, we had some great players in there, you know, and it was Toby. Toby was up front, George McCluskey was up front, and we had some great, really good players. Hegarty was in it, so we had decent, you know. And we beat them 1-0, and I scored obviously, and it's the only Scotland team that's ever won in Italy.
You win 1-0, you get into the semi-final.
Yeah, against.
This is all happening whilst you're a young player.
Yes, funny boy with red hair, yeah.
Yeah. And played in the UEFA Cup against Feyenoord.
On about 50
Johan Cruyff.
on about 50 quid a week.
Yeah.
A match came into my head this morning, and because I was thinking about Tommy Burns. And it was the day Aberdeen won the league at Easter Road when they beat Hibs 5-0 in 1980. Celtic drew Love Stream nothing each that day. Were you playing that?
No, I don't. I'd come in at 80. So I just come in. My first game was against Airdrie because there were so many. Because I was midfield player, there were so many players.
Sure.
Lex Richardson, Billy Abercrombie, Tony Fitzpatrick, Scanlon, Billy Stark. I mean, the list was...
By the way, your interview with Billy Stark was tremendous.
Brilliant, good. So I knew Big Starky, so I knew he was going to come because I know him for
He's such a nice
some
man.
man. He's been brilliant. What a guy he is.
Please offend him. Very humble, eh?
Very humble.
One of the greatest to have unkind Scots, do you think?
And
I'm
absolutely.
with Tommy with that one. I know, it was great.
They were really, really close. But the reason I've mentioned that game at Love Street enough in each game was that I was sort of going home and away all the time in that period. And it was heartbreaking because Celtic had to win things, and they had to score a lot of goals as well. Aberdeen, the goal difference was huge. But the players came back on the pitch after the game and went up to the North Bank. I always remember Tommy Burns he'd obviously started to take his kit off and then thought, no, I'm getting back onto the pitch. So I don't think he was wearing shorts. I've got a recollection just in his wife fronts and his Celtic top. But do you know what else occurred to me? Aberdeen beat Celtic by a point and on goal difference, but they had to go and then play Thistle a couple of days later. So technically, I remember being a young boy watching that game, and if Thistle had beaten Aberdeen 10-0, Celtic would win the league. Right, obviously,
Fantasy.
it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen, but it was still mathematically,
Even with Thistle were called Partick Thistle now.
Exactly, I know. What I'm saying is, it probably
They're
wasn't
going to hate me now. They don't like me anyway.
It probably wasn't going to happen. But that way, you visualise Fergie running on the pitch at Easter Road and then celebrating like the league was officially over. It wasn't officially over. You know, there could have been an outbreak of some illness in Aberdeen camp, and Thistle could have won 10-0.
I remember one game we were playing Celtic, and it was nothing easy, and Rangers were playing at Aberdeen, and the score was a bit, can't remember. But I'm saying the Roy half time, they had to beat us, you know what I'm saying? You know the score, I told you, you go, no, the Gaffer's not telling us. I'm saying, you're losing the league. I said, get up the part and score. And he's going, no, I can't leave because me and McDougall were on fire.
That was 82, was it?
Yeah, no, it was the season, no, it was later because it was the season I was going down and club playing off front McDougall. And I says, I can't remember, it may have been 84, I don't know. But anyway, I'm saying, I may have been midfield, but I scored all the time anyway. Yeah. But I was saying, he's saying, I can't leave you to, and I'm going, we've no chance of scoring. So unprofessional, but
Celtic beat Aberdeen.
I think I had a corner flag for about a couple of yards.
Celtic beat St Parkhead to win the league in 82. They beat them in the league. They beat them 3-1. I think it was George McCluskey scored a couple to win the league in 82 at Parkhead. And I think you were playing. You kind of red curly barnet that you had.
I was playing, yeah. Aye. It was a big game. Was it not a big game? Can't remember what the score was, but I remember the first goal coming and I'm looking at McDougall and too slow.
By the way, see, bring the curtain down.
I know it's so unprofessional, but it was we were qualified. We qualified for Europe, so we couldn't do anything anyway. Aye. You know, we'd done what we had. That
seems fair to me.
That seems fair to me.
But you know, when you think about the achievements at that stage in your St Mirren days, Young Player of the Year, playing in European football against Johan Cruyff, scoring against Italy in the quarterfinals. I've got to ask the question why Celtic weren't interested or didn't try and sing.
Because they signed Judas and Remo. I get told after the Celtic game, it's Love Street, that Celtic, I was going Celtic. And I scored. We were getting beaten. I thought, well, in my last game. So I scored against Packy and I said to Mick, I've scored any time against you. I was winding him up, obviously. But he's trying to kick me. And I thought, you know, we're quids in, I'm going, that's something. Have a good weekend. Get down to business on Monday. And I went out. No. And then never signed me. Signed me more. First time. It was the first time we signed.
Yeah.
Was there not a feeling as well, though, that sometimes the Celtic, they had to wait for somebody to go down south and get back up to show that they were good enough? Do you know? I'm thinking of, like, even Tom Boyd, he went down in Chelsea and came back up.
We should have signed him before that. Yeah, absolutely.
Go Johnson.
To be honest, I mean, I'm not.
There may have been a snowman about it.
No disrespect. I mean, I was a better player because I went to England. So Celtic go me at the best.
So, but there may have been a snowberry. Celtic may have thought they would want somebody from St Mirren.
I don't know if I'd have been as good, but because he just saw us, listen, the training down in England's second to none.
Yeah.
They do everything different. You take strikers away, they take midfield away, they take defenders away. Everyone in Scotland all work together. And there's no, and you know, and John Mel said something to me and I'll never ever forget. When the first day we got a ball, pre-season training, and I was laughing. I'm going, take the piss, you know. I thought, remember that Beatles about? I thought, yeah, no. He says, wait, what's the matter? I says, we don't get a ball. He says, that's the tools of your trade. And I'll never forget that, because it's so simple. I mean, just
You ever used to run
an amount of passing that you have to do, and you lose it after 5 weeks.
Yeah.
You lose that touch.
Oh, totally.
So you get it. He says, don't worry, you run this afternoon. but that morning we had to pass in 10 yards, 20 yards, and just passing the ball to each other and doing wee circuits. And it was just brilliant to get the ball in the first day's training. I'm like, my God.
We were talking about his teammate Frank McDougall as well on the podcast. At point when he left Clydebank in the late 70s, it must have been late 70s to go to St Mirren. And, you know, Frank McDougall would have crawled over Bron Glass to play for Celtic, absolute Celtic, you know. And again, Celtic were outbid by St Mirren for, you know, 100,000.
Lever,
Yeah, I know.
And I would have loved to have seen Frank McDougall on a Celtics trip because he was a goal machine, the guy. He
The gaffer told me about it, because he knew I was pals with him, and the gaffer told me, he says, he knew about me, McDougall, and Chandler. Chandler tries to pick the two of them up. He says, I'd love to have got a threes, but I couldn't have a threes in this team.
Can you imagine?
3 players that was good enough, basically what he's saying.
Not good enough.
What he's saying about it, nuts. I say that could have.
It would have been absolutely.
Didn't Frank McDougall score 4 for Aberdeen against Celtic?
And the Todrick.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you what it was.
4 against Celtic, and he scored 3 against Rangers in the same week.
I've got a
And he
feeling.
phoned me up. And I'm going, what's my wee? Just go 7 goals against the Old Firm. He said, I only got 8 chances and I missed a sitter.
I'll tell you what it was, and any historians watching will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the weekend before the Manchester playoff against Rapid Vienna.
Right.
Aye, because again, my brother and we used to go in the supporters bus from Johnson, the Spadeston bus, and we went up to Pittodrie, and I was just a young boy, but I won't get into too much detail, but a bit of drink was taken, you know.
Aye.
So I've got a vague recollection of sitting at that end. Was it the beach end in those days? Celtic had to be
Fuck, it was.
every time I looked up, Frank McDougall put the ball in the net, and it was 4-0 at half time, I'm sure. I think Frank McGarvey scored in the second half, I think.
There's another player that had to go down south to get.
Yes, it's exactly that. Aye. But on the Wednesday, whatever, midweek, it was the buses all the way down to Old Trafford for the Rapid Vienna game, which is I still haven't recovered from.
No, that was horrific. Frank, after that brilliant season with the Hammers, you go to the World Cup. I mean, talk about peak of your powers, right? And I look at that squad, that Scotland squad, unbelievable when you consider the quality and the fact that we didn't even take Dalglish or Hansen to Mexico. Ferguson's the manager, of course. You don't start a game. And I was reading through that again in your book. I was thinking, how frustrating.
If anyone who knows anything about football, me and Charlie were born to play with each other. I mean, we're two.
Absolutely.
Totally. And that's what impressed me, because I said that his mob caused me small play.
Former mob, but that
Former mob, because just the press took me away with Charlie, got the sombreros and all that. This is the two that's going to shoot us to the next stage of World Cup. And it was, I mean, because we were pals. We knew each other's inside out. And he played Stirrup, man. I scored 28 goals that year in the Premiership. And he never played me. I'm saying, he's going to smart with you. I says, he's not scored 28 goals in his career. As soon as I says that, but I can't keep my mouth shut.
was there a bus of the Uruguay game?
Aye, well, the Uruguay.
You were on the bench, you were the
I
sub.
wasn't even stripped. I was going against Denmark, Germany. Denmark, Germany. So, but he dropped Souness. I was sharing the room with Souness, and because Kenny never went, so I'm sharing with him, and he told me he was going to drop him one of the games, and I'm going. Now the one game I would think you want Graham Souness in your team was against Uruguay. Now Paul McStay, I think when we be world class. When I played with him, I thought he was world class. We went anywhere in the world, he would have been a star man. But at that time, I just thought he couldn't control the game the way Souness would have controlled it.
Yeah.
Especially when they got a man sent off in the first minute.
Yeah. He had a nastiness about the Paul maybe wouldn't have had as a boy of
No, but it was coming through, and Celtic, he could control the game, the tempo of the game. But that he learnt that.
Yeah.
I don't think in '86 he was there yet as a leader.
Yeah.
And it was just one of them, and I thought, if Souness had been playing, well, I think if I'd been playing, we wouldn't have had to go to the other game, but that's me. So February's reasons I'd have scored goals. I really do think I've
Fire
goals.
February's reasons were twofold. I mean, like he didn't like the idea of the press telling him who he was going to play up.
Well, that's the press don't pick my team.
And he also and he didn't like you barricading him in his bedroom either.
Was there no a night that we were Stuart and Charlie as well? And
There was 5 of us. It was nothing to do with. I couldn't carry it myself.
see the thing with that though, Fred. Surely, particularly back then, I know it's changed a bit now, but you've got to let the players go and enjoy
To
themselves.
be fair, Fergie let us out in Santa Fe, let us go out a lot, but we all limousines and all, it was great. And Soonest took us to, he was like captain, he took us to Cowboy, and it was a line dance. I'm like, no, I'll get me out. Honestly, sorry for my phrase. We've come in, and you know, all good footballers, but too left feet when it comes to dancing. And we're all pissed. We're on the dance floor, well. We walked in and we're all doing these dances, they're all doing all that, yahoo and all that. 2 minutes into that, there was chaos. People were falling out of each other and all that. There was chaos in the wee DJ, so like, taking us to Scotland team.
I think it was Alan Ruff told us. He told a couple of Rod Stewart stories, but the one I loved was.
Rod was there. It was Santa Fe. It was unbelievable.
You know, in Rod's limo, and Charlie Nicholas was on the car phoning his mum back in Glasgow, wherever she was from.
I'm out shouting at people going down the Rodeo Drive and all that.
That's fit.
You know, and he gave us these drinks. Rod gave us these drinks called Rod Specials. Don't know what was in them, but he gave us them. I can't remember. Come back. I ended up in the bottom, sleeping on the floor at Eamon Bannon's room.
And he's wondering why Fergie never started.
I'm going, well, why Eamon Bannon?
See when you hear the Republic of Ireland's boys from that same kind of period, 88 and 90, where they were getting into the finals, the camaraderie, the bravery, and I know, listen,
It's lost now, isn't it? I think it's lost now.
but that was a massive part of their success.
Of course it was. You know, but there's something else is lost in football now. I was talking to Lenny about it. I said something, I says, we've got to entertain people. And he says, Frank, that's something that nobody ever uses now. It's an entertainment sport.
Yeah.
I wanted to entertain when I was on the pitch. Every one of your team, you do it Celtics do it the right way. You know, there's always a way to win. If you've got to win ugly, but when you can win with a bit of flair and a bit of style, as Big Billy says, you know, if they score 4, we'll score 5.
Yeah.
You know, and it was great to be part of the teams, you know, teams like that.
See when, and I mean the centenary team is a vintage example of it, and then we never stop thing as if it's a new phenomenon. You know, that was created a long time ago.
Oh my God, I know. Angie's come in and done that. I thought, it's great. And the thing they've invented football, you know, it's...
See, we fast forward to this year.
Yes.
You did finally join a Celtic team that Charlie was in.
Yes.
But it was a wee bit later in your careers, which was unfortunate because I'd have loved to have seen you in your prime.
I know.
What's your memories of that? Because that's another classic jersey. But that was
Before
when
I tell
came
you
back.
about that, the one that when Liam came, McGhee didn't like me and Charlie because we're characters. And they played Andy and Coyne and to Tommy and Andy Payne. Anyway, we get knocked to I think we had to get knocked to the cup with Falkirk, or we get beaten in the league and we had to play them in the cup. But one of the whatever way it was. Anyway, they took it injured. We get beat either in the league or the cup. We had to play them next game. And me and Charlie had to play up front. And we absolutely battered them. And we were had such a laugh, you know. Charlie's Megan put on it. And I'm going, big man, don't go near him. You keep your legs short on him. And it just terrorised the defence. Because Charlie was, I mean, he was that good. Charlie was so good. It was a joy to play with, even at that age. You know, I mean, it was
Still strikers back then, though. Even if you go back to 86, maybe a wee bit early for maybe Alan Acoyce, maybe even for Mo Johnson, Kenny Dalglish, Steve Archibald, Frank McAvennie, Charlie Nicholas.
Yeah.
Brian McClare.
Yeah.
Unbelievable talent that we were producing back then. That takes me back to your introduction to football in an unorthodox way of getting to become a senior. So you didn't go through a boys' club, you didn't go through an academy, right? You basically appeared virtually out of nowhere at 20 years of age, played some reserve team football, and then you were first team football.
It was one game, just because I used to go and watch Celtic every week, and they always played everyone played on Saturday. So amateurs, juniors, professionals. So I never played football. So my dad used to take me, and it was great. And the game got cancelled when I was old enough to go on, 19 years of age. I was not for Glasgow, and the Celtic game got cancelled. And I thought, what am I going to do? Bookies had a £5 in my pocket, unemployed. I thought, see if I can win some money. And some of my pals that remember the old Apollo. Some of my
Before my
pals.
time, but that's like the...
Well, that's before the Hydro. Even before the Hydro. I went to see State Sport and all that. They're brilliant. It goes out far back. It goes, but they all used to meet there.
Right.
And they said, come and have a game. I said, come. Because I used to play football in Malton, didn't I? No, Devon Dumb School and all that.
So this was the
Everyone
this was
takes what he wins.
This was
I was a team called the 200 Club. And Tam McCann, I never forget his name, Tam McCann, Celtic, but that was another one. And he says, and I'm going, I can't be bothered, boys. And the manager says, I'll get a couple of beers. Two of the boys have not turned up. Come and have a game for us. I'll get a couple of beers after. So, that'll do for me. We can't talk. And I've always said 80% of becoming a footballer is luck. 20% ability in it. And that's the way I am. I went to play this game and I'm having a laugh with my pals in the changing room. And I go to play this game and lo and behold, to me, there was 5 scouts watching the boy I was playing against. And I megged him in the first touch, and I'm just there having a laugh. And all of a sudden, I don't know what happened to that boy. I don't know what he is now, you know. But my life took a wee turn that day, so that was it.
a sliding doors moment. A sliding doors moment for that guy that was marking as well. What was about to go.
I hope he went, but I can't remember. I don't think he did. I hope he went on and have a great career, but I don't think he did.
I'm going to read another quote to you, Al, and I'm pretty sure you'll know who said this to you. You'll never make it, no chance, son.
Very old.
Very old. So we were talking briefly about the Jags, and obviously you almost signed prior to coming to Celtic.
Well, one of the teams for that, see, Johnson Borough gave me money to sign, and they still let me go on trial. So I went on trial with Thistle and Simon. And when I went on trial with Thistle, Barry wasn't too clever because he put me on a sub. You don't do that with a trialist. You know, you get him and brought me. To be fair, I was skinny. And I was like a Swan Vesta. You know, I remember the matches.
That's Swan Vesta.
I was like that, and he put me on and took me off. And then third game, took me off and he came in and I'm sliding the basket. And I realised then, you know, this may not be, but I thought I was better than him. And Barry came in and he said to me that you'll never make it, son, juniors at your level. You'll never make it in professional footballer. And he's talking to me and I just put my head under the water. And that was the moment I realised I was going to make it in football because I just decided I'm going to do this.
Magic. That could have buckled a lot of footballers.
You know, I just put my head under the water as he's talking, so you can imagine me. I never let him alone after that. When I signed, every time he's gone, no. You know, because Barry loves to hold court, didn't he? God rest him.
You've said he was just saying that to the spot.
Oh, he did that once. I kept going, what player you are telling everyone how to play football? What judge you are a football player? No, I keep getting him all the time. And then he's holding court one time up in the Jockstein Lounge, and I walked in. And he could see me and I thought, oh, here we go. And I've walked right over. And before I could say anything, he says, you know, we'd such a good team at this, so I couldn't give him a contract. I laughed, brilliant.
One player he did sign was Mo Johnston. Right?
Yes.
And recently I was talking to Peter Grant, who I've not got the quote, but said he listed all the strikers that he played alongside at Celtic. He says, and the best of them all, and you know, he played with Di Canio and the cadet, Frank McAvennie. Don't know if you've seen that, but that was Peter Grant who said that. Yeah. And you know, when you're considering the kind of players that came through at that time, Dirty Old signs Mo Johnston for the Jags, but Granty was saying how he was explaining how it affected his friendship with Morris because they were pals, right?
To say for Rangers.
How did it affect? Because you were
in France. I was in France. I was in his house. I was over. We went to see Simple Minds. I was in London and went to France, but to see Simple Minds at Nantes Stadium,
right?
And we're all there. We're all staying. Chateau Limo or something like that. I don't know where it's called. But we're all there. And it was, you know, we're having a good one. I went to a concert, an unbelievable concert. We were right in the middle with big crates of champagne, all children, or Jim and Charlie saying the champagne in. I mean, with all the mixers and that in the middle, you know, with the pitch, with the stadiums, you know. Yeah. We were in there. It was brilliant.
What a time to be alive, son.
And then we'd go on the bus to go back to... We said, right, we're going to Mo's place for a party, so Jim and Charlie and I were coming with us. So he said, right, we'll take a tour bus. So we're on a tour bus and we're having a champagne. I'm such a
cope all right with that.
Aye. And Mo's going like me. Mo says, fucking hell, she says, oh, it took us 20 minutes to get here. How long we been on this? We've not even moved yet. But 3-6, so he said he could be signing, he told me in Germany he could be signing for Rangers. And Jim had a bedroom and he never gave him it. Obviously never paid them, but you know, it was...
Do you remember what he was wearing when he came back to side for Celtic?
Yeah, he got £1 million put right in his bank account, didn't he?
Is that right?
Aye, for Rangers put £1 million.
I do remember, because you know who had the same jersey and was wearing it the same week? Garrett Honeycutt. coming back to haunt us.
Was it the red and black Dennis the Menace type thing?
Aye. Yeah.
I always remember that. And do you know that, thinking back, that when Big Billy was talking to the press and he was next to him and I don't know why he's after the event, but it just seemed to be something about his demeanour that was like, "Oh, I'm not coming back." That's how I kind of felt.
Celtic, I mean, listen, more, the biggest problem is that he's 42 in Celtic jersey.
I know.
That's the biggest. It was no big signing.
Imagine getting
that's bad enough, but getting the 42 the day before in a Celtic jersey.
Who would do that? Who would get the picture and sign the Torpedoes Perry paper for?
Anyway,
See the Partick Thistle. Interestingly enough, though, Frank, see when you go to Firhill that day, did anybody tell you that, or the press are going to be there? Because I'm starting to wonder, because I know Celtic, the board, the way they were running at the time, did Mo Johnson turn up and didn't even know it was
no, I
going to
didn't.
turn
I
up?
just I turned up and didn't run, and John Lambie says he couldn't sign it because I hadn't paid my phone bill.
Out in Hong Kong.
Out in Hong Kong, I came back from Hong Kong, and I'm going, what? And he says, so we've sent it, but
So that club hadn't released your papers because
the owner gave me 17 grand or 18 grand to leave because I'd still got a few weeks left of my contract. And I said, I'm not signing. And he said, go now. But I was pals with him and I liked him. He was all right. One of the triads, he's never met anyone like me before. I'm sitting his knee and all that, and he thought, mind us again, all that. I'm going, come on, give me horses. Because he owned all these horses and he gave me great tips. But anyway, he liked me. And I says, look, I'm not signing. Football's crap. I've still got something to give. And he says, go now. And I knew it meant, because it's all a saving face over there. So he's going to slaughter me. So I says, no, I'm just still going to give me an envelope and I don't know what it is, 70, 80 grand or something like that. So I'm off. So I didn't think he would bother about the £200 phone bill. But it's no him deals with that. It's somebody, the commercial manager.
Was it mobile? Was it not?
No, but the commercial manager that dealt with that says we're not releasing his registration until he pays that bill. So John Lambie had to bank transfer or wire transfer it, and it takes a day or so. See, now you can just pick up the phone and do that. Done. And they'd have released my registration. But in the deal, I've got to be honest, and this was supposed to hate me. The deal was, if a bigger team come in, I was leaving. They were leaving me, letting me go. So I'm on this, as you said, all the photographers are, and I'm going, who have we signed? Hazel Irvin, BBC, and I'm going, who have we signed? She's going, you. I'm going, what? She went, you'll keep us in a job for the next year. So I'm going, oh, probably. So anyway, that's what happens. And then my agent had the big brick phone. Remember, he just come out. He's going, Liam wants to talk to you. I played with Liam at West Ham.
Yep.
So I went, tell Chippy I'll phone him back. Nobody thought anything. And he says, no, he wants to talk to you now. And I went, all right, Chippy, how you doing? And he's like, good. He says, oh, tell me you're no signed. I went, no. He says, where are you? I says, send a sock out for home, getting poison. He went, you've definitely no signed. He said, why? He says, do you want to come by Celtic? And I was like, so I started whispering. And I've turned my back on the cameras and 30 photographers or something there.
Still have the Jags jersey on.
Still in the chat.
Those pictures.
I've got pictures. I've still got them. Got scarf around me and all that. And I'm whispering. And Liam's whispering. He's going, where are you? And I'm going, what are you whispering for? He's like, I says, what the photographers behind me? And he says, you definitely no signed? I says, no. He says, you want to come by? And I says, yeah. I says, you know you owe me money. And he's going, what? I said, I don't know. He thought, because Bobby used to play poker. He must have thought it was poker. And Tommy says, we know. So I went.
Just try to imagine you get out of Firhill without signing.
I said to John, sign later in his family, I've got to go. Well, Celtic is my family, so I wasn't telling any lies.
No,
That's what it
absolutely
was.
not.
And then, of course, on the news that night, I'd signed for Celtic. So John tried to sue me. He tried to sue me, Thistle. And the following game we played, the next time we played there, Liam says, Stuart Slater's taking the penalties. He says, you've got to get him more goals. And I went, right. And I get pulled down at Firhill. They were giving me dogs abuse, you can imagine.
Did the Tammy announcer bid you?
Tano announcer was like Tommy Coyne, number 8, so-and-so number 10. No, just missed me at number 9. None. No, and it was, we'd like to wish everyone, except Frank McAvennie and Bommy Murdo, Merry Christmas and all that. And it was just embarrassing. So I was getting dogs abuse. So when I got pulled in for the penalty, Stuart ran over and he says, oh, thanks, Mac. I said, no today, son. I took it back and we did it. We beat him 1-0, smashed it. I couldn't stop laughing. I've smashed the top corner.
I'm glad you mentioned Stuart Slater, right?
Aye.
Because there was a lot of false dawns back then.
Aye.
And I remember when we signed him, you might have been the same. You used to get a lot of your information from Shooting Match magazines. And he was regarded as a golden child.
Unbelievable.
How can a play like that Well, how does it not work, Frank?
He started drinking.
Right.
That's because when I signed, Liam says, got to look after Chopper. That's what we call him, Chopper. And I'm going, why? He said, he started drinking. I went, you're joking. Never drunk in his life. He said, no, he was going out and threatening all the bouncers at the clubs in Glasgow with ICF and all that. I'm going, you're joking me. Who are you talking to? I'll get the ICF up and all that. Drink's a horrible thing. Sorry, tell me. Anyway. So that's what he's doing. I'm going, he's never drunk in his life. So, and he got married to a Glaswegian, and I was trying to explain to him, you know, be careful what you do with your... Because she'll take it. And she did.
Be careful what you do with your
He was a really tidy player. There was a Rangers game at Parkhead. I think he was man of the match. He was outstanding. He hit the bar and all. He was great. But I can't remember the final. Did they win 1-0? I can't admit.
It was always the way back then, wasn't
It was 100%. But even when he came, everybody thought this is a really cracking looking player. But his goal scoring record was virtually non-existent. He played something like 50 or 60 games that hadn't scored. You know, did he come directly from West Ham?
Yes.
It was funny.
Ipswich seems to play a farmers. Didn't he go then to Ipswich?
It was funny because Liam was his agent.
Aye. Oh, who'd have thought then, right? Okay, that explains it.
Tony Cascarino's as well.
Aye. Yeah.
Made no bad money out of Celtic, didn't he, Liam?
Big money.
But I actually liked Slater, and I tell you who I really liked too, and he was unlucky because he was playing in a dreadful era for Celtic, was Andy Payton.
Aye, Andrews.
He had a good return.
He did have a good return. There was Andy Payton playing in a top Celtic team. So many goals. We're talking about Frank McDougall, you know. Andy Payton had played in a really, really good Celtic team. Goodness knows how many he might have scored, you know.
He came up to play in that St. Roch's game, and every so often it's a picture of him and Frank, and he'll always post it on the socials. He just loved his time at Celtic.
I loved it. It was one of these. It was great. But they tried to play him in midfield, St. Roch's, and he's going, I'm a good striker.
Hey, tell us before, just as a wee aside, have you ever had Wayne Biggins on Acsom?
No, and you know, I think guys like that would interest me, Stuart. Was he on Under the Cosh?
No, I know. It's just to come into my head because we're talking about Andy Payton, and I was thinking about. Aye, I was thinking about, you know, and then remember we were discussing the Wayne Biggins stand, the temporary stand during reconstruction, and I just thought it'd be great to hear his recollections. I know. If you get him first, we can get him. We'll get sloppy seconds.
He would be brilliant because, you know, he was a senior player at Norwich when Sutton was coming through.
That's right.
So apparently he was notorious. He was a notorious senior player, aye.
Really?
Aye.
That's and how he kind of spoke to people and all that, or just because of
in a good way, you know, the way that he would test the young guys coming through.
Which is interesting because with Charlie McGrew, I'm sure he spoke to you as well, but in talking about being a young kind of apprentice, so when they call it, coming through and going to the changing room, and Big Sutton just absolutely destroying him.
I said to one of the boys, oh, it's a new car you got. He says, oh, brilliant. He says, did you paint it up, or you just pay cash like the rest of the boys? The big boys like, he's paid up.
The other one he said to the young lad as well, oh, see, we've got a new Mini. He says, yeah. He says, I might get one of them and stick my dugs in it. Well, I'm old would have been proud, eh?
Characters, though.
But he don't do that now.
Everything would be brilliant, isn't it?
No allowed. But I thought growing up in that dressing room was brilliant. You know, I thought it was great.
You had to be hard. You absolutely had to be hard.
But it made you who you are.
We've discussed, like, you know, HR and modern football.
It's just, it shouldn't be. I mean, you know what? I'm talking about Barry has done that today. That's what he's done to the other mob, because he's brought that in and just see what he done, took that guy off after 20 minutes.
I know.
That frightens their life out of the rest of them. They say, oh, this is different.
Means business.
It means business.
He's not interested if he upsets them.
No, he doesn't care.
I've got a question about this. Final question of the day, right? You were involved in one of the most high-profile incidents in a game against Rangers. You get sent off.
Yeah.
Fisticuffs, handbags, whatever, and that's just should be it done. But we all know what happens. You get taken to court. It's Goldilocks and the Three Bears and all that. Brilliant, classic headline. It's happened again with Duncan Ferguson against Wraith Rovers, where it's player versus player. I'm talking about. The one thing that the most recent incident was, for me, different was the fact that it was a player interfering with the crowd in a powder keg game. Police not interested, but they were interested in getting involved with you, Duncan Ferguson,
Very good point. Very good.
So, and by the way, look, it's a squishy water in the face.
I know, but you're talking incitement.
And I thought,
you guys were inciting a riot.
It's the kind of thing I'd have done, to be honest with you. But if I understand the fury and all that, there's a photo of Raskin in a a ball just went by his head. He said,
Yeah,
and
seen that.
I remember that, and I'm going, nobody's picked up on that, and I'm glad of that. Do you know what I mean? So when it was some discussion, it could have been anything. See if it was.
was that plastic bottle as a result of the
Don't know,
discussion?
but see if it was. See if it was a juice. Then you can understand people ruining after going out or something. I can understand, but water. Once they found out it was water, they should have died down and just took it the way. They've just beat Celtic. They've not beaten them in 5 years.
I've got my
Hear them,
thoughts on-
they're still celebrating. You know, they've got an open deck bus coming in Glasgow.
That's the highlight.
Because they beat.
Yep.
You know that.
So let's say he's got water, and the people who are sitting there, they just look like, normal, happy, go lucky Celtic fans, mind their own business. Imagine it was some complete rocket with a short fuse that decided, I'm going on the pitch
Aye.
to sort him out.
Well, they should have, but it didn't. But listen, it's wrong. I get it, but it's they hate him. They just scored and he's running and he picked up all one squeezing it.
Do you think there'll be any champagne getting sprayed out of the crowd?
They need to turn it around, don't they? You need to turn it into a humour.
I mean,
They do.
as Coisty says, remember, Coisty was on the radio and he says, you've got to do that because it's Watergate and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
when Gaza, he gets thrown around by the dentist chair and he was lying in the pitch with us squeezing water in his mouth. Something like that's going to happen the next time.
Although what I would
Next
say,
time, but something's going to happen.
What I
I
would
get
say
over
is-
it. I mean, it's just it's war, and I get it's wrong. But
there was that period.
let them have their moment.
There was that period a few years ago when it was complete and utter dominance, and Griffiths would. He had his wee tradition of tying the scarf around the corner flag at Ibrox and all that stuff. So it's a wee bit of kind of what goes around comes around. Because you imagine being a Rangers fan during that period, 5-1, 4-1, whatever, and then just all the fun in the games.
I know it was. It's just one of these things. It was one of we got it when he never even scored and he blessed himself with more.
He's still taking that goal though.
I said to him, I was in the dressing room. I've got me a chance of claiming all the get it with and go with it.
I could never quite. You have to watch that carefully to see who gets the final touch. See the Centenary Cup final. I don't know how many times I've watched Kevin Gallagher's goal for Dundee United. I've never been 100% sure what foot he scores that with. It's actually his left foot, outside of the foot. Aye.
Great finish. And another player I wanted to sign at the time.
I know it was great because I remember the interview and the guy was always one by Alan night and the guy says, "What did you see in the first goal?" And I said, "Nothing. That's why I went in." Umpire was laughing. Brilliant, big Alan.
Listen, tell us where to find your show. For anybody who's watching this who hasn't tuned in yet, how can we find you and
Okay, well,
subscribe to the channel?
dead simple. It's called the Let Me Be Frank podcast, and we are very visible. Obviously you can get it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Just key in Let Me Be Frank. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all the usual social media pages, and you're really getting quite good at this as well.
Getting good at it, yeah. I used to ask a question and answer it. And he had to stop. We had to go that. And
We're starting to dovetail quite well. I've got a wee thing when Frank starts talking over. And I'm quite bad at talking over people too. I've noticed in the last hour or so, but I'll give him a wee kick.
so we're getting there.
It works really well.
I said to him,
We're not an expert like you.
I said, you watch
Great to watch.
I said, watch the way to interview somebody. Just exactly.
You used to.
Just ask the question and then zip it and let the answer and let them talk.
But some of them are great. Some of the answers are coming out. I mean, I love the best one was Rod. Rod's here in the pub.
How you got him is just
Meet him
brilliant.
in the pub.
Aye, brilliant.
Just got in touch with him and he says, "Yeah, right."
I'm thrilled actually pinching myself that happened. There was a more surreal after me.
His missus was there and she says, "I'm a granny," and he almost started doing knees on Mother Brown. He's dancing.
He was singing "You Can't Shove Your Booty
shove
Over
your booty off a bus."
We're in that flight club off George Square playing darts.
I mean, just surreal. This is Sir Rod Stewart.
He's doing well for his age. I've seen him at the Bayern Munich game.
Brilliant.
Big time Celtic.
And interestingly, because that topic came up during the interview with him, and how well he is for 80. And he said that my old dad, his dad gave him one piece of advice: look after your legs. And so he's got a big athletics track in his house down south. So he still does 100 metres. He still, what was he saying? It was 18 or 19 seconds. But his legs are incredibly fit. And he's bouncing around the stage at 80 years old. But it's so true when you think about it. When you get to retire and you want to live a good retirement,
Yes.
these are important.
Right. You've got to be able to move.
Aye.
100%. Yeah, fair play to Rod.
Aye.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again,
Thanks for
Frank
having me.
and Simon, for joining me on a Celtic State.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Cheers, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks again for joining us on a Celtic State of Mind. You can find Let Me Be Frank on the link underneath the video. Also, if you have any stories, positive stories about Tommy Burns, send them to a Celtic State of Mind and we'll forward them on to the campaign for the canonisation of Tommy. We want to make Tommy a saint. So let us know any positive stories that you have about the great man. Join us next Friday at 6 o'clock for This is Acsom.